Hello everybody, welcome to Voices of Friedreich Ataxia. Our goal is to raise awareness and funds to cure Friedreich Ataxia. Today we will talk. I no longer let fear of the future control my life with FA. By Kendall Harvey. The first thing I experienced after my Friedreich's ataxia, FA, diagnosis in 2013 was fear for my future. I remember reading words like wheelchair-bound terminal and average life expectancy of 35. That meant I had already lived more than half of my life. And while my first 25 years had been wonderful, they weren't enough. I wasn't done. I didn't want to spend my remaining years as a disabled lab rat. I was terrified that the vision and plans I'd had for my life were now out of reach, as my future would be determined by FA. Fear took over my life. It drove my decisions, behavior, and attitude for longer than I care to admit. Reacting from a place of fear took my life in interesting and unexpected directions. I became a dedicated student of my disease by trying to learn everything I could about it. I threw myself into passionately building Team Kendall, a place where people could learn about FA, read my story, and get involved in our mission to cure FA. I changed careers. My husband and I decided to make the most of our good years by starting a family. My friendships were either strengthened, rekindled, or strained. My faith was tested in ways I never deemed possible. I always thought that I had a firm foundation in my faith, but when I switched from letting faith drive my life to letting fear control my life, everything changed, and not for the better. I was constantly anxious and felt out of control. I was so afraid of my future that I became convinced that if I fundraised enough, networked enough, and worked hard enough, I could change my future overnight, and FA would vanish. But a nagging voice in the back of my mind would constantly remind me that FA was unavoidable, and fear would take over again. After all, I was only one victim of this cruel, relentless disease. What real difference could I make? After living in this unfulfilling mindset for a while, I chose to relinquish my fears and desperate quest for control to God. The past 8 years have shown me what a difference living a life of faith can make. I have raised over $225,000 for scientific research aiming to treat and cure FA. I have built the best network of friends imaginable. I have received support and encouragement from wonderful people who follow my story from around the world. And most importantly, I am no longer driven by a desperate fear of the future. That's not to say that I am no longer afraid of what FA has in store for me, but I can acknowledge that FA is only a part of my future. It doesn't define me. It doesn't rule my life. I choose to act from love, faith, hope, reality, and courage. Fear will always be in my life, but as a passenger, not the driver. Thanks to God, my life is beautiful and wonderfully complex. I am honored to share that with the world. Kendall Harvey is also an FA patient, and this information was taken from Team Kendall with their permission. The link is provided in description. Hello everybody, welcome to Voices of Friedreich Ataxia. Our goal is to raise awareness and funds to cure Friedreich Ataxia. Today we will talk. Recalculating the path of my life with FA. By Kendall Harvey. If life with Friedreich's ataxia, FA, were charted through a GPS navigation system, it would constantly say recalculating. The relentlessly progressive nature of this disease affects all areas of my life, both expectedly and unexpectedly, bringing changes to both path and destination. Before my ankle break and reconstructive surgery in 2018, I was still walking independently. At that time, I was devastated at having to go from walking on my own to sitting in a wheelchair during my 10-week recovery. I was convinced that this would be the end of my independence and that I would never walk on my own again. That worry made me extremely motivated to make sure that didn't become my reality. I followed doctor's orders to a T. I pushed myself harder than I ever had and it worked. I walked independently for 6 months, before using a walker full-time in February 2019. Loss of mobility. The decision to safely retain my ability to walk by becoming dependent on a mobility aid was a difficult adjustment, but I knew it was for the best, that it substantially decreased the odds of another catastrophic fall. Then, nearly 3 years into life with a walker, I fell and broke yet another bone, this time in my foot. I had to spend yet another recovery in a wheelchair. Now that my foot is 75% healed, I am starting to walk again. I use my sturdy 4-wheel walker when I have other adults around, just in case I need help. I can endure about 2 hours a day of walking before I go back to my wheelchair. I just don't have the stamina, stability, or confidence to safely put the wheelchair away for good. I'm terrified that this is the beginning of me having to transition to life in a wheelchair, or at least life with multiple devices. My broken foot is what caused this loss of my mobility, but even after my foot is fully healed, I will still have to deal with its impact on my being able to get around. With FA, it often feels like it's 1 step forward and 3 steps back. Stick me in a wheelchair during recovery and my progress is even worse. FA is a relentlessly greedy monster and I feel like it has devoured my abilities. A 7-week recovery may not seem like a long time, but it feels like an eternity considering the timeline I'm under. I'll fight every minute of every day for the 3 to 5 years that my doctors predict I'll have to walk independently. I worry so much that this injury has cut into what little time I might have. I must reset my path. As a result of these setbacks, I feel like I also need to recalibrate my expectations. I need to find new ways to face down the monster that is FA and learn to be okay with what that will mean, what feelings it will bring up. I am reminded that there can be peace in the end, that it is possible to fear a loss of independence, and still trust God's plan. That I can grieve the diminishment of my mobility, and have faith that God will carry me. That I can feel angry and discouraged that there is not yet a cure for FA, and trust that God's timing is perfect. It is possible to be both hopeful and fearful. Contradictory emotions don't have to cancel each other out. They can coexist. So I will strive to feel them, speak them, work through them, and deal with them wherever they lead me. As Ferris Bueller said, life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it. I don't plan on missing out on my life just because of my mobility. Kendall Harvey is also an FA patient and this information was taken from Team Kendall with their permission. The link is provided in description. Hello everybody, welcome to Voices of Friedreich Ataxia. Our goal is to raise awareness and funds to cure Friedreich Ataxia. Today we will talk about an amazing warrior. Luke Cooper. By Kendall Harvey. One of the aspects I avoid thinking about or sharing about Friedreich's ataxia is how it is a life-shortening disease. But, it is. FA is a cruel progressively degenerative disease that robs its patients of so much, including a long life, in most cases. Our community is grieving the loss of one of our FA warriors, Luke Cooper. He fought so hard every single day, but last night, June 21st, FA won. Please join me in praying for this family. Praying that Luke is now running and playing, free of disease and disability. And that we find a cure for Friedreich's ataxia so that no one else will lose their battle to this horrible disease. Life is so precious. Hug your loved ones. Love you all. Kendall Harvey is also an FA patient and this information was taken from Team Kendall with their permission. The link is provided in description. Hello everybody, welcome to Voices of Friedreich Ataxia. Our goal is to raise awareness and funds to cure Friedreich ataxia. Today we will talk Boldly Moving Forward, Even with FA by Kendall Harvey. Last weekend, I had an old experience in my new, disabled body. I went to a wedding. Most of my friends are in the married and having babies phase of life, so I haven't been to a wedding in about 4 years before I was dependent on a mobility aid due to my Friedreich's ataxia, FA, progression. In truth, I was nervous for months leading up to the joyous occasion. The bride is my best childhood friend. She was also my college roommate and the maid of honor at my wedding. At her wedding, I knew I would run into childhood friends I hadn't seen in 20 years, and college friends I hadn't seen in 12 years. Considering that I was diagnosed with FA 8 years ago and began using a walker 3 years ago, it's safe to say that these old friends didn't know what to expect in meeting Kendall with FA. Add in the complications of being in a wheelchair due to a foot fracture, and my husband being unavailable to accompany me until the festivities on Saturday, and the weekend quickly became intimidating. Being there for my friend was far more important than my fears and insecurities. So, I gathered up all of my courage and decided it would be an adventure and a test of my independence and grit. In other words, I was too stubborn to let my body and my disability dictate my ability to celebrate my beautiful friend and her wonderful new husband. I experienced many new things on this trip, including talking a valet through opening my wheelchair, opening a heavy hotel room door from a wheelchair, utilizing a roll-in shower with handrails, navigating elevators in a wheelchair, and giving and receiving countless wheelchair hugs. After each new experience, I said to myself, see, you can do this disabled life. It's not that bad. I was reminded of one of my favorite quotes from a Winnie the Pooh movie, in which Christopher Robin says, "You're braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think." I think that applies to just about everyone, especially those of us battling fear, insecurity, uncertainty, worry, and doubt due to physical disabilities. Last weekend taught me a lot. I tried something old in a new body. It was a new but unexpectedly familiar experience. Although I was physically sidelined for a lot of the action, it was more fun than I expected. My advice to others with FA is to step out of your comfort zone more often. It's easy to let our disability dictate how we RSVP or approach events, but just because it's easy doesn't mean it's right. Remember Christopher Robin's message and live boldly. Look for opportunities to test yourself. Give yourself a chance to shine. Take risks, though not foolhardy ones that will likely result in an injury. You never know when you may surprise yourself and what you can learn. Boldly go forward. Try both new and old things with your new body. If we allow disability to dictate all of our choices, we have officially surrendered our power. We must take it back. It may be the best decision we've made in a while. Kendall Harvey is also an FA patient and this information was taken from Team Kendall with their permission. The link is provided in description. Hello everybody, welcome to Voices of Friedreich Ataxia. Our goal is to raise awareness and funds to cure Friedreich Ataxia. Today we will talk. Friedreich's Ataxia forces me to be a spectator mom. By Kendall Harvey. A big part of my experience as a late-onset Friedreich's Ataxia, FA, patient is the disease's impact on my role as a mom. My life is action-packed from the minute my busy 6-year-old son and 4-year-old daughter wake up until the minute they go to sleep. Toddler life doesn't pause for fatigue, injury, or the blues. Baseball, swimming, gymnastics, carpool schedules, play dates, and Sunday school persist no matter what FA has me feeling that day. The hours after my kids go to bed are spent cleaning up from that day and preparing for the next. For better or worse, on good days and bad, my responsibilities as a mom trump the desire to lie around pouting about my disability. But FA still factors into my participation massively. It dictates most of my life, especially the daily activities of motherhood. FA can be a heavy burden to carry and a huge obstacle to overcome. I often feel like I miss out on so much because I am stuck on the sidelines with my walker or in my wheelchair. I'm not usually able to bop around socializing or helping the way many of my friends do, considering the terrain, my limitations, and my abilities. Therefore, I often take on a spectator role. Feeling like a spectator in my life has pros and cons. I have the opportunity to sit back and soak in the atmosphere, sights, sounds, feelings, and action. Instead of having dozens of little conversations with lots of people, I have long conversations with a handful of people. I'm not always able to grab things for my kids or take them to the restroom, so they have to rely on other people. I'm unable to pitch in and help, and more often than not, helping me means more work for those around me. It's frustrating that my disability forces me to be a spectator when I would rather be an active participant, like the other normal, able-bodied people. But because being a mom with Friedreich's ataxia is my reality, and my disability will continue to affect my ability to participate, I can either grow more resentful or adjust my perspective. A dear friend of mine helped me make my choice the other day. She told me that in scrolling through my social media, she became jealous of my ability to simply be present, witness the action, and capture the moment, either through photos or journaling funny kid quotes. She went on to explain that when she's at a friend's house or her son's baseball game, she's so busy running around helping that she misses the whole reason she was there. I sarcastically responded, "No one asks me to do things because I can't do most of them." So, yes, I get to watch all of the action instead of being a part of it. She reminded me that because of that, I have what everyone is always striving for, the ability to soak in the moment. I get so wrapped up in my negative feelings about my forced spectator point of view that I forget the positives. I might not get to bop around and impress other moms with my supermom abilities, but I get to have my daughter sit in my lap as we talk to our friends, and share in my son's enthusiasm when he asks if I saw his awesome hit. Yes, I am forced to ask for help, or just sit and watch more often than not, but what a blessing that can be if I simply adjust my perspective. Because of my disability, I am able to be an active and passionate spectator who experiences the big moments, the little moments, and everything in between. Kendall Harvey is also an FA patient and this information was taken from Team Kendall with their permission. The link is provided in description. Hello everybody, welcome to Voices of Friedreich Ataxia. Our goal is to raise awareness and funds to cure Friedreich Ataxia. Today we will talk Choosing to Trust the One Who Holds Your Future by Kendall Harvey. At Fearless Mom, you will often hear, I don't know what my future holds, but I know who holds my future. The who being our good, gracious, compassionate, intentional, and loving God. I often repeat that mantra and pray over it. I choose to surrender my fearful anxiety to God daily. Sometimes I have to remind myself hourly. Yet, if I am completely honest, my future still terrifies me. I have Friedreich's ataxia, FA, a progressively degenerative neurological disease that affects my central nervous system. Bit by bit, I get a buildup of damaged cells that cause my balance, coordination, speech, energy, and muscles to get worse over time. As an FA patient, I, unfortunately, know what my unavoidable future holds, at least physically. And that affects me emotionally, spiritually, and relationally. Seeing my body become increasingly disabled despite all my efforts to curb my symptom progression is devastating. What started as unexplained incoordination and uncharacteristic falls during co-ed sand volleyball as a newlywed has progressed to the point that I use a walker full-time to account for my poor balance and coordination. My walker doesn't make walking easier, but it keeps me walking safely and independently for now. Even with my walker, my walking is becoming increasingly difficult and dangerous. It helps me get from point A to point B, but lately, that isn't enough. I am struggling to get off of the ground after playing with my children, cross thresholds or small steps, get out of the car, and walk 5 or so steps to my trunk to get my walker, and I struggle to get up out of chairs. The part of my future that terrifies me is being disabled to the point where I am confined to a wheelchair. Judging by my rate of progression so far, I will likely be dependent on a wheelchair within 5 years. Yet, in light of my recent mobility struggles, one thought that kept haunting my mind was maybe being in a wheelchair won't be so bad. I'll be safer and not as tired. But, boy, was I wrong. I fell over Labor Day weekend and fractured a bone in my foot. As I am not coordinated enough for crutches, that means that I am to recover while in a wheelchair. It has been incredibly difficult and emotional. Since I know that a wheelchair is an inevitable part of my future, I am trying to accept this bump in the road gracefully. I am trying to tell myself that God is allowing me to see that life in a wheelchair doesn't equal the end. But I am having a hard time not stressing about the unfairness of my future and the inevitable impact it will have on my abilities. This time of emotional and spiritual turmoil has me thinking about my future a lot. I am reminded of the days and weeks after my FA diagnosis in 2013. I thought that my future had been taken from me. I spent countless nights crying myself to sleep, mourning for the children I would never get to have with my husband, Kyle. I was certain that I would progress quickly, end up in a wheelchair in a few years, and then die of heart failure a few years after that. I thought that it would be more cruel to leave Kyle a single father than just a widower. After months of praying, speaking with doctors, family, and friends, and armed with a realistic prognosis, we decided to have children. We boldly chose to leave our future in God's hands, instead of the hands of science and fear. We now have 2 beautiful and perfectly healthy babies. Brooks, 6, and Collins, 4. My motherhood journey hasn't been all hope, trust, rainbows, and unicorns. I've had the same worries that every new parent has. Is my baby eating okay? Is my baby sleeping okay? Am I teaching him the right things? Am I making the right decision? Is this normal? And, because of my disability, I've had extra fears. What if I fall while carrying my baby? How can I hold their hands in a parking lot if I'm holding a walker? Are their friends going to make fun of them for having a disabled mom? How will I dance with Brooks at his wedding if I am in a wheelchair? Will I ever get to meet my grandchildren? When I get in a dark place where I am spiraling into anxiety about the future, I prayerfully bring it back to today. What are the choices I can make and actions I can take that will make today better? What can I control? What is out of my control? No one is guaranteed tomorrow, and no one knows what the future holds. All we can do is our best, and let God take care of the rest. Surrendering my fears and worries to God, be it willingly, out of desperation, or because I truly had no other choice, has worked out amazingly. God has shown up for me time and time again. In His merciful goodness, I've been blessed to live an amazing life, despite my disability. Time and time again, He has shown me that I can trust Him with my fears and worries, so why should I doubt Him now? Kendall Harvey is also an FA patient and this information was taken from Team Kendall with their permission. The link is provided in description.